Okay. Here we are once again. Can and could. If you're watching the replay, like the video. If it's useful, should be on the right mic. Keeps changing volume for some reason. But let's see. I'll bring up some of our things here. So we're digging a little bit deeper into can and could, trying to tie everything together. Oh yeah, I bookmarked all those. I can just open that here. Where did I put that? Yeah, it's in here. Gonna open all. Okay. So we'll wait for some people to get in here. My voice is weird today. And we're also going to open power. That's not what I wanted. And no. Abdullah is not here. Well, good to know. Thanks for telling me you're not here. Taylor's here. Welcome. My two favorite people. M. Ganeshali's here. Welcome, welcome. So waiting for people to filter in here. My voice is all weird today. That is not a word. So today we're diving a little bit deeper. We're going to try to tie things together. And let me jot this down. Docs. New. Okay. How are you? Before you asked or now. Wait, what? I'm confused by Abdullah's statement. But how am I? I'm fine. Doing all right. Just trying to wake up. You can hear my fry. I'm still bleh. Okay, so we're going to take this meaning, put it here. We're going to take this meaning, put it here. I'll go ahead and share my screen too so you can see what I'm doing. Share screen. Let's go ahead and do window. We'll do that one. Do you see my other screen? It's not saying it's showing it. I don't know why. Share. Okay, yeah, there we go. And then I'm going to move this over here. And this back over here. Okay. So what I'm doing right now, I'm taking these meanings of can, and I'm compiling them into a source. Oops. So because can is fairly straightforward, it's not as complicated as like, two, where you have like 20 different definitions that you have to group and filter and all this stuff. Yeah, Abdullah, how was your break? And then we also could. Okay. And so we have simple past tense of can. So this goes here. Could. And then possibility. Let's see. Okay, so we see we have two matches. used to express conditional possibility. So this is where can, well, this actually does work too. If we do first conditional can, I can do it if I have time. So instead of will, we can use can. And then for could, you could do it if you tried. So we can actually do I can do it if I try. So they match. There we go. Nice. Polite requests. Okay, notice it says polite requests. So that's not what I wanted. Could. I was going to do it anyway. Abdullah has gone silent. I guess he really isn't here. He's a ghost. Using asking permission. This is permission again. Oh yeah, request and permission are different. I always group those in my brain. So let's actually go here. So we can say, can I borrow your pen? Sounds a little less formal. Could use in making polite requests. Yeah, so because it says polite requests, we can still use can. So requests, can you open the door for me, please? Please is a nice little word. English likes to use modifier words to make something like half a step higher, half a step lower. It's one of the very common uses of adverbs. Like we say common, very common, makes it more common. Super common, even more common, right? It modifies common. Sometimes the word itself, like we have right, good, better, best. So that goes up the chain, but I could say, oh, that's good. Oh, that's better. Oh, that's even better. So it's not necessarily the best, but it's better than just regular better. So even amplifies it. Please is one of those words. So if you just say, can you open the door for me? Very informal, very direct, very plain. If you add please, that automatically makes it sound nicer, makes it sound more polite, but it's like a half step up. Then if you go to could you open the door for me with no please? Then that sounds more polite. That's fine. If you add the please, again, it's a half step up. It makes it sound even nicer, even politer. Notice I'm saying even nicer, even politer, modifying. So good little thing to know. Hello, Akif. Welcome. IG, he's cooking the theory. No time to answer. Right? Terrible. Oh, that sucks. The theory is cooked. Well, that's all right. You can always try again. Look at it from a different angle. Take a break. Come back later. There's probably something there, I'm sure. Use and offering suggestions or advice. Okay, so suggestions or advice. We don't see that here in can. So can we use can for this? You could write and ask for more information. You can write and ask for more information. Yeah. You could at least have called me. You can at least have called me. So can have. That sounds more like deduction. It doesn't fit in this context. So if we put suggestions, advice. I don't know if this second one actually fits here. That's kind of weird. So we can say you can write and ask for more information. That sounds fine as well. Doesn't necessarily sound more informal. It's probably a little more direct. Can doesn't work with the second one. Not with second example. Could. And then what I don't see here, interestingly, from the dictionary is deduction. We don't see the modals of deduction. This is getting messy. See, so we start breaking things apart. So I have space. Okay. And this is how a book is made. This is literally like basically what I did for the prepositions. I just like laid everything out and I just kept hitting enter to give more space. And next thing you know, you have 400 pages. Thanks. Can have equals could have, but less popular. No. Maybe if you say less common, perhaps, but I wouldn't say less popular. Popular means like people would choose to use it. Common could mean that, but so there's also the deduction. So you can say modal of deduction. So we say like he can't have done that. But you don't know. So like maybe I don't know. Somebody said he stole my wallet, and you're like, well, he's never stolen anything. I know this person really well. He would never do something like that, so he can't have done that. You don't know for sure. Maybe he did. Who knows? But you're pretty convinced that that's not possible. So you say he can't have done that. So we're using can't because we're saying it's not possible, right? It's not possible that he did that. If we do could, he couldn't have done that. Could, again, of course, it's making it a little bit more. It's not making it past tense because the have done is already making it past tense. So this is like the one case. I'm pretty sure it's the only case where you use have done to make can't past tense instead of using could, because it's a modal of deduction. It's a weird thing. But it's just the same pattern. We say like he might have done that, or he might not have done that, and it's might instead of can, different mode. He would have done that, right? He wouldn't have done that. He should have done that, shouldn't have done that, et cetera, et cetera. So can actually be used directly. You can use must. Must is another deduction. He must have done that. He must not have done that. So he couldn't have done that. Is there a difference here? He can't have done that. He couldn't have done that. He couldn't have done that. So technically, this is a hybrid. It's a weird case. Welcome, Fernando. This is a weird case because I should probably do one specifically on just modals of deduction because it's sort of its own topic. But the difference between using can't or couldn't is that can't, because can is a present tense, right? And could would be the past tense version of it. Usually, if we're in just the basic meaning of can or can't, which this is the basic meaning of can. When we do the have done, that present perfect, or what looks like the present perfect, connects a point in the past to the present. If you use can't have done that, it sounds still very present. Like the situation is still present. It's not happening right now necessarily, but we're sort of creating this bubble of time. And then we're saying, from the point that the wallet was stolen, using the example I gave, he can't have stolen my wallet, or he can't have stolen your wallet, until now, right? You don't know what actually happened, but it still feels very present, right? So it's this weird hybrid of like the present and the present perfect. So there's like some past mixed into it, but it's not actually everything's in the past. When you say he couldn't have done that, the couldn't does sound more hypothetical, more theoretical, but it also kind of feels, I guess you could use it with just that hypothetical sense, to make it sound a little lighter, a little like less sure, where can't sounds like you're like very sure, like there's no way that he did that. So you could use couldn't that way, but couldn't could also be like it's clearly something in the past. So like a year ago, he stole my wallet, right? If you say he can't have done that, it sounds kind of weird because it happened a year ago. So if you say, well, he couldn't have done that, because at the time he was at my house, whatever. So this is also kind of a hybrid because you could use couldn't in the sense of like still in that present bubble of time, but less sure. It sounds more hypothetical. Or you could use it with the regular meaning of could as the past of can. to make everything sort of in that past, and then the have done would sort of, I guess it still connects to the present because it's the present perfect. It's a weird hybrid. It's a very weird hybrid. So these two are kind of like hybrid tenses in a way. And this one has two possible meanings depending on the context. So this is one reason why modals can get really confusing, especially when we get down to like the specific little context and details, because you can get weird things like this. This is like C1, C2 level English stuff. So this is maybe more advanced than some of you guys, even my regular audience is used to. Wait, so they're not the same? Not necessarily, no. Can never used for present tense. That's a little unclear. Oh, I understand. Can't have done that. Is it grammatically correct? Yes. Yeah, this is 100% grammatically correct. It's very advanced. This is a very advanced use of can. I was just explaining that, like what it means. You can use could have plus verb 3 for near past or distant past possibilities. Verb 3, that's what the past participle. Could have seen. Yeah, that's what this is. See, what you're thinking of is what you learn as a lower to upper intermediate learner. That's like the basic use of could in a hypothetical way, like in the second conditional, third conditional. So that's more common, more a little simple. Remember, this is modal of deduction. You're deducing. It's a very special use of can and could. Let's see. I just heard they're the same, but can't is more of a British thing, and even some natives get confused and are like, can't have done that exists. That's very strange to me. This just seems, I mean, it is relatively uncommon, I guess unpopular, like you said, less popular in the sense of like, it's very niche when you would need to use it. It's not something that we have to use all the time. We do use modals of deduction all the time. It's commonly maybe like should, must. Well, I guess should wouldn't be a deduction. Well, he shouldn't have done that. Yeah, should can be used with modal of deduction. Oftentimes it's must. Must is probably the most common modal of deduction, but this is perfectly fine, good grammatical English. It depends on what you're saying. I wouldn't say it's more of a British thing. This is perfectly fine, good American English to me. I'd be surprised, maybe some of the younger generations, since apparently some of them, like I've heard stories of English teachers, like actual like native English teachers teaching native children, who they're like, hey, I'm teaching 6th grade, and these students can only read at a 1st grade level. Clearly our education system has a problem. It's had a problem even when I was since when I was in school, but it's apparently getting worse and worse. So maybe because of technology, worsening education system, blah blah blah, maybe this, but again, it's regular speech. So maybe the younger generations aren't as exposed to it. I don't know. It seems strange to me that any native would be confused by this. It's just basic. It's advanced, but it's just regular speech. Is regular American speech. We never use can have plus past participle for near past possibilities. Well, we do right here. Again, it's deduction. So the context here, this isn't just regular grammar that you usually use. This is, I guess this is going to be the topic of the lesson. This is, it's deduction. Okay. So the context is, right, let's, instead of done that, because that's going to refer to something that's already in the context. So if I say he can't have stolen your wallet, this is a perfectly fine sentence. Okay. What this means is, right, so let's say you like, so like I know you're one of my friends, right? Okay, and you come to me, and then there's Tom, right? And we both know Tom. Tom is our friend too. And then you say, hey, Tom stole my wallet. And I say, what do you mean he stole your wallet? Why would he do that? You say, I don't know, but he stole my wallet. I know he stole it. And you say, okay. And I say, when did he? I say, when did he steal your wallet? And you say, well, I noticed that it was missing this morning, right? And Tom was, around, and I just know he took it. Okay. And then I might say, for example, let's say that Tom was with me, right? And you don't know that, but Tom was with me. So I say, well, he can't have stolen your wallet because Tom was with me. So unless I'm lying to you and I saw him steal your wallet, or I also stole your wallet, then that's not possible. Okay. Again, you can use couldn't to mean exactly the same thing, but can, if you use can or can't, it sounds more solid. There's actually a level here. If you say must, um, at least in the positive, yeah, there's a little bit of a difference between must and must not in deduction. They're used a little differently, but if it's positive, at least must sounds strongest, can sounds a little less strong, and then could sounds even less strong because it sounds a little more hypothetical. In the negative, if you say he must not have stolen your wallet, that sounds like, well, I found proof that he didn't take it, so I guess he didn't, even though I thought he did. So maybe I convince you, I say, well, he was with me. And then you say, huh, well, I guess he must not have stolen my wallet. It was someone else, right? Um, so sometimes that gets a little more confusing because sometimes there can be a little different use between the positive and the negative. Um, if we're going to make this positive, we would actually more likely use might. He might have stolen your wallet. If we say he can have stolen your wallet, he can have stolen your wallet. It works. It doesn't sound too bad to me. I don't know if we would actually use it. But if you use could, he could have stolen your wallet. Of course, that's basic regular grammar. So that does work in the positive. So the positive instead of can't, we might actually use might. So it's weird. Modals of deduction can get weird. Anyway, this is a perfectly fine sentence. There's no problem with it. Let's see. That's okay speaking, but not okay in writing. I see no problem with writing this. Absolutely none. It's just regular language. It's not informal at all. It's just normal speech. And writing. I would write this. Like if I had an official business correspondence and someone was like, Tom stole my wallet yesterday, I say, and in the email I say he can't have stolen your wallet. I would have no issue. It doesn't feel informal to me at all. It's just normal grammar. I think 2 years ago, I watched a person and they actually got confused by can't have done and said, huh, can't have done. Well, I don't know. maybe it's something that's decreasing. Maybe I'm old enough to where it feels normal and whatever, but maybe the next generation, it's not. I don't know how old this person was. If they were older than me, I'd be extremely surprised by that. I don't know. So anyway, whatever. That's not what we're here for. You got a little mini lesson on modal deduction there, but we're trying to root out the core of can and could. So we're creating this little scheme here. I didn't give it good examples there, but could. Those were all the uses of could that we saw, but we still have these other ones that don't seem to have a could. So to know how to be able to, this actually I guess can kind of go with this one. It's not exactly the same, but it's close enough. To have power means to. So this is the same as up here. So we're going to delete that one. Right qualifications, that's sort of special. What was the example for that? He can change whatever he wishes in the script. Yeah, so this one, again, it's power. We can add ability, power, qualifications, or skill. Sort of a very special subdivision there. But okay, so now it's all clean. We have correspondences or connections between can and could in every case. Again, could isn't always a simple past. That would be this first usage here. In other cases, right, it's a more polite version of permission. It's a more polite request. To have the possibility. Okay, so a coin can land on either side. What was the example here? I wonder who that can be at the door. Probably use could, but that can't be true. That couldn't be true. Yeah, so that can't be true. So this is kind of like this one here. He can't have stolen. The difference is that this is a modal of deduction, and this is just you're saying it's not. It can't be. It's not possible to be true. So they're really saying the same thing. It's just we have this extra grammar piece here that sort of makes it special. But anyway, so that couldn't be true. That can't be true. Again, they won't always match. Sometimes we might prefer could, because like if I say, I wonder who that can be at the door. I wonder who that can be at the door. It does work. It sounds fine to me, but we'd probably use could. And then of course, if we're doing like first conditional, right, I can do, this would be second conditional, right? You could do it if you tried. And then third conditional, you could have done it if you had tried. The had is optional. So we have could again, but now it's being put into the past by the what looks like the present perfect. It's the have done part. So this is the this is the past tense of could as a hypothetical. I know it gets weird. We layer things in a weird way. We saw last time how can, could, able, they seem to be part of a bigger root system that's connected to have with like power, handle, control, ability, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if part of the reason why we have this type of structure is because of the core of have and how it's sort of filtering its way through can and could. But I don't have a firm conclusion or research on that, so I'm not going to say that that's the case yet. But have is wild. I did a bit of research on have, the etymology, and like trying to find the core of it, and I think I did successfully find the core of it. But have is so crazy because of all of its different uses and above the surface and grammar functions, and God, it's probably the single most complicated verb in the entire language. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. It would probably take us like 3 or 4 live streams just to get through have. It's and even then, like I don't think we could get through it. It's amazing. But anyway, have is like the core of the language almost. Have, to be, and to do. Those are the 3 core verbs for the entire language. Which is also why they're pretty much the 3 most common. Anyway, so we have our meanings here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 meanings, 7 uses. So that gives us our stuff. So we did do a little simplification, right? We saw, okay, so this one, they kind of all just went into this basic one here. So we sort of collapsed this 6 uses of, or 6 meanings of can into what, 3? And that's part of the process. You want to simplify it as much as possible. Not to the point where you're forcibly saying, oh, well, this can just shove into here. No, it's like they're close enough. They're within, like ability, power, qualification, skill. Those are not necessarily directly related, but especially because they were all in the first definition, it's based around able, right? The ability to do something. We can easily kind of, say, okay, we're going to do that. And then the know how to, I think it's fair to put that in. Maybe somebody else wouldn't, but to know how to, right? If you don't know how to do something, you're not able to do something. So there's a little bit of a difference there, but I think it kind of just goes naturally with that group. Okay. And then of course, when we do the could, again, sometimes it's going to be able to, sometimes it's going to be could. They're not always the same. But when we do could as a past tense, the past tense for all of these for can would be could, right? I had the ability, I had the power, I had the qualifications, I had the skill. So I could do that. I could swim. Sometimes we would use used to. So it depends on exactly what you want to say, but these kind of conceptually, they all fit. Okay. the next step. Now we also saw with able, okay, we had this sufficient power or means, so there's that power again. We saw to hold, we're not going to map out everything here, but to hold, to have, that goes into have. Fit for a purpose, right? We saw manage, right? Because that was the other use of able. So I was able to. That's if you say I was able to swim, that means I could swim, right? I had the ability to, but most likely it's probably going to be manage. I managed to swim. I was able to swim. So it's not really about the ability to do it necessarily. It's about the successful attempt or the successful. I don't want to say successful ability. It's kind of weird, but so that's more about management, being able to do something, make something happen, affect by effort, like we saw, accomplish something. So this is an interesting idea that we can't forget because can is not complete without able. Right? It's even like part of the core definition of can. So unfortunately, that provides a complication. And I think I'm just going to put this up here. So we're going to do sub alternate able. So even though it's a different meaning, right? It's still able is has its own core. One of it is expressed through can. I am able to, I can, and another is not. And so maybe it's not directly relevant to can, but because it's all part of the same root network, it might be useful to at least keep an eye on. So alternate able, manage, succeed, accomplish. These are all just related words, ideas. Okay. Let's say affect by effort. That's a nice phrase. A little fancy, but so what was I thinking here? Alternate able, manage, succeed, accomplish, affect by effort. Yeah, at that exact moment in the past. Yes, we're still talking about something else. Okay. So then, even if this doesn't directly apply into this, it is kind of attached. It might be in the background. There's probably going to be some root connections going on. So we have that as a little reminder that that's also kind of around. Maybe it'll become relevant, maybe it won't. So then the next step, now that we have all of our information here, this is the hard part because it's easy enough to go to the dictionary and say, okay, there's this meaning, there's this meaning. We looked at the etymology and we said, okay, so we see some common words being used. We see ability, we see power, we still see knowing, right? We saw that can, we go back to can. Can is rooted in the Old English kunan, to know, which eventually just became the auxiliary use that we have today, have power to or be able to. So it doesn't really have this knowing meaning anymore. We use to know for that, but it's kind of connected to this idea of knowing. So we can also get some keywords here. Now these aren't keywords as in the core idea. These are just keywords for things that we're finding over and over again in the process. So maybe instead of keywords, let's use a different thing. Let's say, I don't know, special words. We can do that. Let's say power, know. This would be how to specifically. Ability, able. Let's see. So those are the ones that kept coming up a lot. We can also say have, because have is really like even further down in the core. So we're going to keep an eye on these, maybe keep an eye on this on the side. And what we're going to try to do now, the hard part is we're going to say, okay, this group is one meaning. This group is one meaning. This group is one meaning. So these are different meanings, right? Different expressions of can/could, right? So then, if there is a core essence, there should be some sort of keyword or idea that is underneath all of these uses that they all come from. Okay, so how do we figure that out? We may not be able to figure that out in the next 20 minutes. Could you increase? Oh yeah, I always forget, sorry. It looks perfectly fine to me, but I forget on the screen it's kind of small. Okay, so Meaning 1, this is our core meaning. Now, just because it's the core basic meaning doesn't mean that this is going to be it, right? We can try to maybe say, oh, well, you know, ability, then because you have the ability, you can ask permission to do it. Like it's maybe, maybe not. So we don't want to be so simple on it, but sometimes it does work that way. It's kind of hard to see now. So if we do, thanks, you're welcome. We want to try to, I don't even remember exactly how I did this for the prepositions. I mean, I know the process I went through, but I don't remember how I actually went about trying to find that core. It was not easy. I was looking at a bunch of example sentences. So again, could is just going to be the past tense here. The can and the could, again, they're not always going to match, but in their different categories, these different like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different dictionary definitions, they will have a correspondence. So can and could are kind of like two sides to the same coin, different expressions of it. So we're not necessarily going to try to treat can and could separately, although that we might have to do that at some point. They could might end up being sort of like maybe a special branch off of the core that mostly corresponds to like the other half with can. It could be like two halves of a plant. And then sometimes you have a different colored leaf that doesn't quite exactly match the other side. That's a good image, I think. How did I do this? If you guys have any ideas too, you can throw them out there. But okay, so we have ability, skill, know-how, maybe permission. Yeah, so I think what I originally did when I was doing the prepositions is I looked at the first group and I said, okay, so this is the meaning. These are the ideas that we're seeing going on. And then I looked at the second one and I said, okay, so what could that have? Like what underneath the surface that may not be so obvious, what connection might there be? Right. So we're trying to find like that first root that's starting to go under the surface. And then once we have that, we can say, okay, well, does this third one also work with that? Can we tie that in? And if we can't, then maybe we found something between these two, but it's sort of its own little thing and it's not actually leading to the root itself. And so we have to go back and revise what we found here in order for this to also work. So it's literally, it's like digging in the dark, right? You're trying to, or walking around, you're trying to find your keys in the dark and you're feeling around. Well, no, that's not it. I think, okay, I remember that it was on the table. The table's over here, right? And you're trying to figure out where it is without being able to actually see. So if we go from 1 to 2, okay, so may, right? May is permission. So we don't want to get confused with that word. We can take that off. So have permission to. Okay, can I borrow your pen? Could I borrow your pen? Just sounds a little bit more polite, sounds more neutral. So that's just there for reference. Can I borrow your pen? Permission. Permission. Okay. So then we might say, well, is there something in here or something in here that under the surface are connected? Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot to add. There was that idea of possibility, which is connected to able. Possibility. Remember, possibility was like power, because that pos part is related to the power, and then ability, right? The I is changed from the A, ability, possibility. So that's like the power to do something. It's possible, right? It can happen. So that's kind of tied in with that as well. But anyway, if we go to permission, okay, so now we have a new idea to sort of look under the surface and see what's going on. So we can go to the dictionary. We can do permission. Okay. Authorization granted to do something, formal consent. Okay. Ask permission to leave the room. Okay. Very good definition. The act of permitting. Okay. So we don't really find anything here necessarily. We see authorization. Authorization is, right, related to some sort of authority, power. Interesting. Okay. Because if you ask permission, that means that you can't just do it. You don't have the ability to do it because you need, like, maybe you're just an employee and you need to be authorized by somebody higher than you who has the power to make that decision. Okay, so we see even in permission, we might not think permission power, but obviously if you're asking permission, it's because you don't have the power to do it yourself. You need to ask for permission. So power is implied in permission. Interesting. So now we're seeing power again. Okay, so there's power, power, power. Now this is from below because you're asking permission, right? You don't have the power. You have to ask for the power, right? In a way, right? They have the power, but if you ask them and they say yes, then you have the power to do it. Okay, so here we found a nice little piece from the dictionary: authorization related to power, formal consent. Okay, don't get confused with formal, right? Necessarily, because if we use can, it sounds a little more informal, but it's consent. Consent. Okay, so that might also be a interesting word. But if we go to here, let me say permission. Okay. So as a noun, leave, sanction. This is a special use of leave. It's not the normal use of leave. Sanction, the act of allowing. Okay, so to allow. Permission, something like that. I don't know. Directly from Latin. A giving up, a yielding. Okay, we saw before somewhere in our, I forget which word it was connected to, but we saw give, right? Maybe it was in, I don't think it was in manage. It might have been enable. Yeah, to give or receive. All right, so able comes Old French habel, whatever, from Latin whatever, verbal adjective of habere, to hold, which ultimately comes from Proto-Indo-European to give or receive. So we follow that chain all the way back, and we see ultimately able is related to holding, hand, have, right? To give or receive. Okay. So then we go back to permission. We see a giving up, a yielding. I'm giving you permission. I'm giving you that power. All right. So we're finding more connections under the surface that aren't as immediately apparent, but this is why we do this digging. Okay. Sometimes you'll find something that's not necessarily relevant, even if it seems relevant. We have to keep an eye on that, but we're seeing something interesting here. Okay. A giving up. Not giving up as in quitting, but a giving up as in yielding, right? As in I'm releasing control to you to be able to do that. So that's give up in terms of release control, not quit. Noun of action for past participle, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so right in here, bam, we see our connection, I think. Gobble, yeah. That's that's the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of gave. I gobble it, gobble. Sorry, Arnold, I love you. We like to make fun of his accent, at least how it used to be. He sounds a lot better these days. Well, better, you know. He took a lot of classes to try to improve his accent. We love Arnold. Anyway, allow me to pass through. So this is permissive, permissible. So these are other forms. Sometimes you might find something interesting in here. Sometimes you might not. Allowable, proper to be allowed. Okay, so this is the other meaning of leave. Whoops, that's another one. Liberty granted to do something. So we're seeing kind of the same things. We don't have to look at all the different forms and stuff. So that's interesting right there, right? Okay, so if we say permission, we can put a note here. I don't want you to be italic. We can put a note here. We can say permission is related to, what was it? Allowing, giving up power. Okay, allow, give up power. Okay. So it right, we can say it gives the ability. We also saw permission implies authority. Okay, that you have to ask. There's someone above you in power. So permission implies we'll say approval from authority. That could be a parent, that could be a boss. It doesn't matter in the context, but okay. Yeah, no lower it. Okay, so we're fleshing out an idea here, and we're starting to see how this connects up to here. So able to, power, ability, qualification, skill. Now this know-how is still kind of abstract, kind of lingering. Maybe it might have been a mistake to put it in here, maybe not. We'll see. Either way, we're getting to the core idea, so it's going to connect anyway. This one might be kind of hard to connect, that know idea, because it's the last remaining connection to know. It's not the normal use of know. So we're going to keep that lingering there for a minute. We might have to break that off into its own thing, and we'll see if we decide to do that. Some of this is revision, right? Sometimes your initial idea is like, oh, that doesn't quite fit there, right? So this is literally like what I'm showing you guys right now is pretty much the exact process that I went through with the prepositions. The only exception being the prepositions have a lot more meanings and they have a lot more examples. And so it was a lot more complicated to sort of, untangle all the threads. Okay. So then I think that's our connection there. Have permission to. Okay. Maybe we can find more. Who knows? But that seems pretty clear to me, pretty obvious how that can sort of connect to that. So we're getting this idea now. Because this doesn't have anything to do with this, we're saying, okay, well, that's not really connecting. Skill, not really about skill. Okay. Qualifications, maybe kind of, sort of. Because, I mean, there's this idea of authority, power, but that's kind of like your qualifications to do something. It's a little different, maybe kind of similar. Power, obviously, ability, able to. So this first part here definitely applies to this. Okay. So this, because this is the basic use of can, this might be sort of the broad case, right? That covers a lot of things because it's the basic use of can. And then we might see, okay, well, this one connects to here. And then maybe, these ones over here connect to another one, who knows? We're going to figure that out in the process. But I think we have a connection there. There's some sort of thing under the surface going on with probably power as the core there, power and ability. Okay. Number 3, request. Can you open the door for me, please? Okay. So we'll say, well, what is a request? Right? We look for the answers in the information we have. We dig into what we have. So we looked at permission. Let's look at request. What is a request? We go to the dictionary. Request. Okay. So we have it as a noun. We have it as a verb. Okay. Kind of extensive. Has 8 total entries. Not all of them are distinct necessarily, but the act of asking for something to be given or done. Asking to be given or done. Interesting. There's that give again. We're asking. Okay. Probably need some sort of power dynamic because we're requesting it. Otherwise, I'd just do it myself, maybe. Especially as a favor. Okay. Maybe somebody has the power to do something that you don't. Or it could just be, hey, can you open, like I can open the door, but I don't want to get up. So can you do it for me as a favor, right? And there's probably something in favor as well, which we can look into. I'm getting an intuition of that because of por favor in Spanish. Or courtesy, okay, solicitation or petition. These are all words that we can potentially look into, but this right here, the act of asking something to be given or done. Okay. At his request, they left. So he asked for them to leave and they left. So at his request, they left. Good. Synonyms, prayer, interesting, supplication, entreaty. Entreaty is a very fancy word. I wouldn't think of prayer as a synonym, but I guess it could be. That's kind of weird. An instance of this, I guess an instance of request. There have been many requests for, so 1 request, 2 requests, an instance, right? One particular request among many requests for this particular product. This is a definition that can be confusing for English learners, but a written statement of petition. If you need supply, send in a request. So again, they're just further subgroups of examples of this one. So far we don't see anything different. Something asked for to obtain one's request. So you asked for it, that was your request, and then you got what you requested. Fits into here very easily. The state of being asked for, demand. So you are being requested. Your presence is requested. That's a very fancy way to say, like, this person wants to see you, talk to you, whatever. So little bit slightly kind of feels a little different in a way in the application, but it still ultimately fits right in here. There's not a whole, it's like just right off to the side, pretty much right in there. The little branch is sort of sticking out there, but it's clearly connected to the rest. As a verb, to ask for, especially politely or formally. He requested permission. Yeah, request is kind of like a fancier word to say ask in a way. Sounds nicer, sounds politer. So to ask for, especially politely or formally. To ask or beg, beg, either way, to ask or beg. Bid, usually followed by a clause of infinitive. To request that he leave, to request to be excused. Okay, so we get ask again. Beg is like a really strong form of ask, like please, 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 right? Feels different than request, but ultimately you're still asking. To ask or beg someone to do something, so that's related to the second one. Okay, so we get ask as a verb. It's basically a form of asking for something. And then we saw that right back in here, the act of asking for something to be given or done. Okay, so those all kind of fit together. Doesn't matter if it's a noun or verb, doesn't matter all these different uses that we're looking at, these different dictionary listings, they all come back to this. Okay, that's the core idea of the dictionary definitions anyway. So we can go to the etymology and see what this says. Okay, so we have request as a noun, we have request as a verb, require something different. Okay, so mid 14th century, 1300s, requeste. It's probably not how we said that, but this is modern English. I don't know how to say that. Act of asking for a favor, service, etc. That's what we saw. Expression or of desire for something to be granted or done. Basically what we saw. From Old French, requeste. That's how French sounds. Sorry. A request, vulgar Latin, requisita. There we go. A thing asked for. Okay. All the same stuff. Requested, demanded. Now, demand, interestingly, demand is kind of coming up a lot. That's not necessarily important, but what is demand? Demand feels strong. I demand you do it, right? So you either have some power or think you have some power to be able to force someone, to command someone to do something. So it's interesting. There's that power idea again. So requests is not as readily, it's not as readily apparent or obvious that it's tied to power, although we can see that pretty clearly. But demand sounds like it's even more tied to power, like it's coming straight from power. So that's maybe like a stronger version of request, to demand something. You're not just asking, you're telling, right? Past participle, blah, blah, blah. Seek to know. Interesting. So there's no, but obviously that's probably not a connection there. That's probably just the regular use of no. But seek to know, ask, or ask for. Interesting that seek to know is in there. But that's from this Latin stuff, not necessarily English. From late 14th century as that which one asks for, by 1928 as a letter, telephone call, etc., asking for a particular song to be played on radio. So yeah. So if you're listening to the radio and they say, oh, call in and give us your request, or request a song. So yeah, it's just, I guess the radio was around. A letter, telephone call. Yeah, so telephone was around before the radio. So yeah, that's just different. That's not relevant. Request is a verb, 1530s. Okay, interesting. So it was used as a noun in the mid 1300s, and by 1530s it became a verb. So right, it wasn't always used as a verb. It was used as a noun first. That's very interesting. I wonder if their R is still pronounced like KH or whatever when it's the first letter. I don't know. I have no idea. Ask someone to do something, express desire for something to be done. 1560s, express a wish or desire, ask to be allowed to do something. So there's allow again. So allow, permission, allow, request, right? That's why in my brain, allow, permission and request, even though they're two different things, they're tied together. And sometimes I mix them up when I'm talking about them. Okay, we're not really finding anything new here. Ask again, request, reclaim. For those Spanish speakers out there, I think it's reclamar is not this. I think maybe it can be used the same as reclaim in English, but you tend to use it differently than we do. So that's from the French requester. That's this one. Don't think of reclaim here for English. That's completely different than request. The older verb was Middle English from Old French, blah 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 blah. Okay, so nothing new there. All right. So what did we get with request? We did find allow, which is interesting. So we can do that because if you're requesting something, it's less direct, right? But can you open the door for me? I'm not allowing you to open the door, but I guess you're allowing me to make that request. Let's see, what did it say here? Ask to be allowed. Yeah, so I am requesting. So it's sort of reflexive. It's like the opposite way. Instead of allowing something, you are being allowed to do something, I guess. So I'm requesting. You can request permission, right? Request is a form of ask. So there's definitely a relationship between them, but we'll put a little star here because we don't want to get too confused between the two. That is sort of in the mix. But allow, what else did we see? Asking for something to be given or done. Okay, so asking to be given. So there's that sort of reflexive again, that passive voice. So asking to be given, done, deon, done. So ask is a keyword. Obviously, power can be under the surface here. It's not as direct necessarily, but there's maybe something going on, requested, demanded. Not as strong as with permission, but there may be some power implied. But a request sounds very nice. It sounds very polite. It sounds like a very easy way. I don't want to say easy way, but a light way compared to like a demand. As I said, demand, like you're telling someone, requesting, you're asking someone. I want to look at favor really quick. Favor. Attractiveness, beauty, charm, approval, blah 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 blah. To show kindness, honor, regard, worship, goodwill, kind regard. Yeah, we're not seeing anything there. Favorable, yeah. Okay, so we're not really finding anything in there. Although I don't know. As a favor, there may be. No, there's not. Does it say anything about a favor? Thing given as a mark of favor. I guess that's the old way to express it. Doesn't really tell us much else other than that. So, okay, so I guess there's not much in favor. I was thinking because por favor, with how por works, there could be some sort of connection with favor going on, but it doesn't seem so. Maybe like allow someone to assist you with opening the door. Yeah. Indirectly under the surface, I guess, yeah, it could be what's working there. But if you were to say that, like I'm allowing you to assist me by opening the door, it sounds very arrogant. It doesn't sound like you're politely asking someone to do something anymore. It sounds like, oh yes, I have the power and I could open the door myself. Notice I'm switching to a British accent because that's what we do when we try to sound arrogant and fancy. I could open the door myself, but a little southern there. But I'm going to allow you, little peon peasant, to do it for me because I know that you would just love to do things for me and help me out in every way that you can because you worship at my feet. You know, like that's how it would feel if you were to say it like that. So be careful. It's an under the surface thing. Yeah. We are technically out of time here. We're making progress for sure. This is fun for me. Like I would not have been able to write a 400-page book about prepositions using this approach if this wasn't fun for me. Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes we run into roadblocks, but I am having fun with this. I don't know if, last time we were kind of just looking at sort of the layout of the land, getting some key ideas and special words and stuff. And now we're kind of digging a little deeper. We're starting to see connections between these things. And some of you might be like, whatever, I don't care. But let me know before I go here, if this is interesting, if this, like, you want to see more of this, you want to continue this, because we still got what, four more things to tie in here. We're starting to see a pattern for sure. And I think that, there's going to be other people who find this content that are going to think this is interesting as well. But just seeing the process that I go through, and then you can apply this yourself. Like, if you get used to watching me do this, you can be like, I wonder about the word give or whatever. What's the core of give? And then you can do your own type of research like this and think about it. Now, if you're not a native, right, I know how things feel. I know certain phrases and stuff that they might be related and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then I know some things, like if I look at favor, I had an idea here. Maybe you look at favor and you're like, I wonder if maybe if that's relevant. And maybe you try to, like, tie this in or something, even though as a native, I would be like, yeah, I don't see anything relevant there. But then again, there could be another native that looks at this and maybe they do find something. I don't know. I'd be surprised. So I have the power of a native, obviously, to draw on in the background. But it's the same process that you can apply yourself. You can even maybe apply this to your own language if you're interested in doing that. So King Lion likes it, Taylor. So I think it's useful to go through this process live. So you're seeing my thought process play out. You're seeing the type of research I do. You're seeing the way that I try to think about this stuff. So a little look into my brain, I guess. My chaotic brain. I like English a lot, and these things are always interesting. Well, that's good. At least one person likes it. I'm sure. Let's see, we have 9 people here right now, so maybe there are 8 other people who also like it. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be here. But yeah, so if we want to continue, we probably finish the second group, or the second half of this next time, and we'll make it a 3-part thing. And I'm pretty sure we can, unless we run into a big roadblock, we should be able to find that core idea. We're already getting a pretty good image of what it's going to be, something related to power, giving, again, ultimately rooted probably in have in some way. But we're seeing all these little branches, right? As we're digging into the roots, we're like, okay, common themes. But then above the surface, if we go back up and we see all of these, right, and all of these, and we're like, this is sort of, we're seeing the plant form, right? It's like we're climbing on the branches and mapping out the territory. And so as you dig down, you can come back up and sort of start to see, and it really does start to become beautiful. That's not a word that I use lightly. It's just amazing. But anyway, we're out of time today. Thank you for your amazing live sessions. No problem. Thank you for joining us and commenting. Let me know you're here. I believe that should be pronounced Tomaz. Probably said weird, but I would just say Thomas. That's how we say it in English. Tomaz. But yeah, good. We're out of time, so we're gonna have to go. The next I think the next grammar lesson is just going to be a regular preposition one, because we were supposed to do that today and I skipped it. I wanted to continue with can and could, but yeah, I don't have it scheduled yet. The next grammar type lesson will probably be a preposition. So we can pick this up next week. And somebody was asking about for. For is not one that I really want to do, but we can do it. We won't be able to cover for in one session. And I probably wouldn't do it exactly the way I did with in, but for is very complicated. So I don't know. But I know there are people waiting for the preposition content too, even though this is the same type of approach. So we'll probably do a preposition lesson. We'll probably come back to this next week. and finish this one up. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Otherwise, of course, we have the Q&As, pronunciation lessons. We have on Monday, we have the analyzing your recordings. You shouldn't have done that. You can get your recordings in if you haven't yet. I'm pretty sure it was you shouldn't have done that, right? I don't know if it was he or you. It doesn't really matter necessarily. But yeah, you shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have done that. So you can send your recordings to my email before Monday, and I already have, I think, 2 or 3. So we can get that in for that. But otherwise, I'm going to go. Thank you guys. And yes. Okay, good. Thank you guys. And I will see you tomorrow, I guess, for a Q&A. Today's Saturday. Wow. Yeah. Q&A tomorrow. Bye. Stop sharing and stream. And away I go.